Welcome, Harry Watkins fans. In this short video, I'll give a brief overview of the Oxygen XML editor, and I'll focus mainly on some of the advantages it gives us when we're typing in our XML transcriptions. First, let me show you the main elements of the XML editing window that Oxygen gives us. Mostly we're going to be working in the central window on the screen, but some of the other windows around may occasionally be helpful, so I want to point those out. In the bottom left of the Oxygen window is a sort of outline view, and it's an outline view that is sensitive to where we click around in the document, so it shows where we are. In the top right is a list of all the attributes which the element we're currently working on could have. So right now my cursor is in a PB element, and this is all of the attributes that TEI says a PB could have. The bottom right window gives us simply a list of the elements that are available to us and provides a little bit of information on what their function is. So let me start by doing a little bit of transcription. In front of me I have an XML file which corresponds to a sort of empty version of folder 5. There's no transcribed text here yet really, but there is a full XML header. There are page break tags for every page from the first down to the 102nd, and there's even a beginning div element for the first entry on the first page. I haven't transcribed folder 5 yet, so for this example I'm just going to use text from folder 2. So the first entry in folder 2, you may remember, it starts, well, first of all, notice I put in my P, and Oxygen gives me a little drop-down menu of possible elements that begin with P. Which one might I want? If the one I'm interested in is highlighted, I can just hit return, and it'll provide that full information. Now, after the P, I want to put in my date, and again you can see there's the date. Now in the case of date, I need to provide an attribute, the when attribute, so I continue typing inside the date element, and you can see there's my drop-down list and when is provided. It's really up to you to decide whether you'd like to pick things out from the drop-down list or just simply keep on typing. Whatever is faster and easier for you. Alright, so there's my when element. Now here's a little trick that's very useful. To get to where I want to type next, I need to type in the actual text of the date. I could either hit the cursor key a couple times and move to the right, or I could click on the mouse, or if I hit the command right bracket key, I get to the end of my current tag, which is exactly where I want to be. So I can continue here typing November 21st, and that's 1845. Alright, that's the end of my date, so I can again use that command right bracket trick to get to the end of the date and continue typing about Harry's woes, past a sleepless night, consequence, and the P tag is ended, and in fact this is the end of the entire entry, so I need to end the div here. Notice, I'll type slowly here, if I type angle bracket and then a slash to start the ending of the div tag, Oxygen knows that the div tag is the one that needs to be closed. It takes care of that for me automatically. Now, let me pause here before our next entry and note this complaint that's showing up at the bottom of the screen. So notice Oxygen is complaining that the element type body must be terminated. Here's a body, and down here at the bottom of the document, notice there's an ending div, which used to be matched by that first div. It's not matched anymore. In general, if Oxygen complains to you about stuff that's happening at the bottom of the document, you don't really need to worry about it. If you don't like to see those sorts of complaints, the other thing that's very easy to do is simply delete that div and that will quell Oxygen's complaints. When you make a change like that, sometimes Oxygen takes a while for it to recognize it. You see there it took a few seconds for that message to go away. If you're not sure whether the error message you're seeing is legitimate or not, you can always hit the check button up here, which will tell Oxygen to go through and validate the document, looking for any problems with XML or the TEI rules. So I click that now, validation is in progress, and after a few seconds it should tell me that the document is valid. So I'll continue on with the second entry here, and I'll make an intentional mistake. Alright, so now I need to put in, so the date for this next entry is 11/22, so date, but notice when I start to work on the date, I am not given the date option in my drop-down, which is attention-getting to say the least. I could decide that Oxygen is just being silly and carry on, ignoring the error, and say, the date is 1845, 11/22, etc. But notice, if I do that, I get another complaint from Oxygen. And if you get a complaint like this and you can't quite read it, you can double-click on it and you'll get a message, the full text of it popping up as a little window. And it says, element date is not allowed here, expected the element end tag or some other element. And this general kind of message is an indicator that I've done something wrong in terms of the TEI rules. And indeed, if you look closely, you realize I've forgotten my p tag. So I can put that there. Obviously, the end of the p tag doesn't belong there. It belongs there. Fine. So now I can continue on with my date, and I'll put in a little bit more from Harry. And so now I'm going to make another mistake here. Road off. Alright, so this is an underlined role, so I'll use highlight, and that's rendered as underline. Okay, and this is going to be the role, so name role equals count Montalban. And notice that after Oxygen catches up with me, it says that the value of attribute role is invalid, must be an XML name, and that's telling me again that there's something wrong with what I've done in terms of TEI. And you can see over here in the top right window that role is showing up there in red, suggesting that there's something wrong with what I've done. And of course, what I should have done is made this type equals role. And now Oxygen is satisfied with what I've done. So that's a very brief summary of the ways that Oxygen makes life much easier for us when we're typing in these XML transcriptions. It warns us pretty vigorously if we're making mistakes, and it supports us in doing the right thing. Last but not least, don't forget to regularly save your work. You can either do that in the File menu and just hit Save, or Command S or Control S keys. All right, happy transcribing.